Welcome to the Candidates Forum for the Oliver Smith Will Elector, sponsored by the Amherst League of Women Voters in partnership with Amherst Media. My name is Phyllis Lehrer, and I am a member of the Amherst League. I welcome you all to join us. I will be moderating this forum, which includes our candidates, Carol Gray and Sarah Marshall. The mission of the League of Women Voters is to encourage citizen participation in government and influence policy through education and advocacy. We welcome you to join us. This meeting is being recorded. The forum will be rebroadcast by Amherst Media and available for streaming. Please check their website for details. Election Day is November 2nd. Early in-person voting will be available during business hours from Monday through Friday of the preceding week, with evening hours on Thursday. Absentee ballots may be requested until October 27th. For more information, please visit the town clerk's website. If you have a question for our candidates, please type it into the Q&A box on the Zoom screen. We will only have time for 6 questions, so we apologize in advance if we do not get to yours. Remember that you can find more information about the candidates on Amherst Media and on the town's online bulletin board. In addition, the League will publish an election guide in the Amherst Bulletin on the Friday before Election Day. The format for the session is as follows. There'll be no opening statements. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to each question. The session will end with a 2-minute closing statement from the candidates. So let's start with the first question. If there's any that you need to be repeated, please let me know. The first question will begin with Carol Gray. Please explain the role of Amherst's Oliver Smith Will Elector as you understand it. So Carol, if you will begin.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the League for hosting this event. I think it's really helpful. The role of the Oliver Smith Elector, like the electors from the other 8 towns, is to meet annually to oversee the distribution of grants that go to people who are widows, people who are tradespeople, nurses in training, and brides. And then after people have served as an elector for a number of years, then they become a trustee, and there are 3 trustees that meet monthly that oversee actually mortgages also. Oliver Smith Charities has a number of mortgages, and that's how they get funds in addition to the money that was set aside as part of the Oliver Smith Will in 1845. I'd be happy to tell you more about it, but the other big thing that that electors should do from every town is get the word out about what these grants are. And part of what I want to do here tonight is tell people exactly what you have to do to qualify. There's many more people in Amherst who could be getting these grants who just don't know about them. So I have been trying to publicize that. I'm working on a web page for the town. I've reached out to the schools to ask for announcements to be made in the newsletters. I've reached out to ministers, to the funeral home, the newspaper. We really have to get the word out, and hopefully there will be a little more time later to explain exactly what the qualifications are. We need your help to publicize it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Marshall, if you'll go next.
Sure, thank you. Thank you for hosting this this event. Well, Carol's the incumbent, so she actually knows, she's been there. But I would say that is also my understanding, that the role of the elector is to publicize the program in every way possible. And I have some ideas about additional ways to publicize it, perhaps. Very few people know about it. Even just as I was gathering signatures for my nomination paper, I had to explain to most folks I approached what the Oliver Smith Will was all about. And I was able to connect one family with a nursing grant. So yes, there are definitely people in the community who don't know about it and who could benefit from it. I'm interested to hear that the electors, aside from the trustees, if I understood correctly, only meet once a year. I find that a little bit disconcerting, actually, because I personally think there are many ways in which the program needs to be improved, and I would like to think I'd have opportunity for input there.
Thank you. Next question. How much in total is dispersed among the participating towns in a typical year? How much has Amherst received in recent years? Sarah Marshall, would you begin first, please?
Sure. I can only speak to the year 2019 because that is the most recent year for which I was able to find the Form 990, which charities have to file with the IRS. And it's actually quite interesting. The charities, the Smith Charities has about $4 million in assets, as I think Carol mentioned. And in 2019, it made a total of $15,000 of grants to all of those towns, which is 0.34% of assets, which is just astonishingly low. I mean, breathtakingly low, I think. And I understand why that is, and perhaps we will be able to talk more about that. I think that the grants to Amherst residents totaled about $2,000. So not very much. I don't know if more funds were available or exactly how. But I would also note that in that same year, when $15,000 of grants were made, the organization had $100,000 of expenses. So I find these numbers to be of great concern.
Thank you. Carol Gray, if you'll continue.
I absolutely agree. And I feel like the reason that I wanted to do this position in the first place is because I care about social justice. And I think people who don't have, widows with children, brides is a nice category, but these people really need the money, and the grants should be higher. I also agree that the main function of a charity should be that you give away most of your money, and I agree, it's extremely low, and I think that we should do something about that. I don't think that you mentioned, Ms. Marshall, could the grants could there be more money available? Absolutely. So if more people from Amherst qualify and would apply, they would get the money. As far as I know, no one's been turned away if they qualify. But I still think even just with the small numbers, we should increase the amounts of the grants. We should be giving, the purpose of a charity should be to be charitable, not to just function and have staff salaries mean much more income than what you give away. In terms of the meetings per year, I'd also love to meet more frequently. There's a required board meeting I think by the charter or the will to have it be once a year. And then the structure of the governance is that trustees, which rotate into the position, meet monthly. So I'm eager to be a trustee because trustees can actually do a lot more than meeting monthly where we approve budgets. And I regularly say we should be giving away more money and advertising this more. Yes.
This is sort of gives you more time to deal with the issue of how much money. The Office of the Massachusetts Attorney General, Nonprofits and Charities Division online Form 990, which you mentioned, shows that the grants made by the Smith Charities, which administers the estate, typically amount to less than 15% of total expenses. This would be considered very inefficient by watchdog groups such as Charity Watch, which likes to see figures upward of 70 or 75%. Are there legal or other constraints that prevent Smith Charities from improving this figure? Carol Gray, may we begin with you this time?
Thanks for that question. And I've been pondering it myself. And I think part of it is, well, for starters, I think we should be giving away much more money. And there's, I think, a lot of ways that this could be advertised much more widely through all the 9 towns, not just Amherst. I actually care about the other towns as well. I think part of the numbers issue is because of the structure of the charity. So they have mortgages, and so they have various types of overhead that's not typical for a charity. They operate kind of like a bank in terms of mortgages, and so some of the finances I don't really understand. I don't think there's corruption at play, but I think the organization as a whole should really rethink what percentage of what we do is going to charity, and considering it's so low. I've read the same thing on Wikipedia, and it's actually the kind of low number that one would say is something inappropriate happening here, because charities should function with the vast majority of their money going to charity. But I think so the grants are given out based on the interest on the amount of money from the initial will, plus the interest on loans. And so the funding structure is slightly different, which accounts for part of this very low percentage, but I think we could do much more to publicize it, and we should.
Thank you. Sarah Marshall, if you'll continue.
Well, I agree with everything Carol has said about the structure of the program. I'm assuming that, or it is my understanding that any significant changes to the investment plan or how the charities operate would need to be approved by the probate court, because this is a will continuing to operate in the world, it is overseen by the probate court. And I would hope that the trustees would be designing a better program and soliciting the probate court permission to modify the terms of the will or its program, whatever, to bring it into the 21st century, for one, but then also to perhaps permit more diversity in the way its funds are invested. I think it was Oliver Smith's own instruction that it only be invested in mortgages. So those just don't generate very much money. So I would hope a probate court would permit some real fundamental changes to this program that could free up a lot more money and make them outweigh the expenses, which are 7 times the gifts.
Thank you. Now, how does a prospective grant recipient apply for a grant? Sarah Marshall, maybe we begin with you this time.
Well, I assume it's by going to the website, as I did, and downloading the forms for the tradesperson's gift, or the widow's gift, or whatever. But I have to say, I find these forms and the questions, the information that it asks for, to be archaic and very off-putting. I know that there were changes to the will made like in the 1970s, but perhaps none in the last 50 years. So maybe I can get into some of the changes that I would want to see to make this a more, make it clearer who is eligible and how to apply and what the conditions are. But I think you print out the form and you fill it in, and then you put it in the mail and send it back to the Smith Charities. And perhaps the decision is made just once a year, I do not know. But there are a lot of oddities about this program. Many things that could be improved just in the applications.
Thank you. Cal Gray, if you'll continue.
Yes, thank you very much. So I want to start with just saying, okay, may I share screen? Actually, I can just show people. Will that, nope, I'm disabled. Are you allowed, if you can figure out how to let me share screen, I can show people how to actually go to the website.
Well, it'd have to be the Zoom master who will do that.
Okay, if the Zoom master can do that. In any event, up until last year, there weren't even online applications. So I've been clamoring. So during COVID, I said, we have to get a website. We have to get online applications. We're just not fulfilling our mission when people have to come to an office and they can't because it's COVID. So I was very happy that it's too bad, Sarah, if I may call you Sarah, that we couldn't be on together, because a lot of, I think, proposals for change don't go really far in those once a year meetings, I hate to say. And so oftentimes, like the website, I made a motion to get a website and get the online forms where, and they said, well, let's let the trustees handle that. So it did happen. And I think that my motion maybe helped move it along. And even like when I say we've really got to publicize these grants, and I'm very troubled that we're giving away so little, and there must be many more people that qualify. And so we need to take a lot more initiatives. I don't think changing things in the probate court is going to go very far, particularly since the other 8 electors, just publicizing, doing like a Facebook page, doing like, it's change does not come easily. And we really have to push it because that's what they wanted,
Okay.
and the people deserve it.
Next question. From among the categories eligible for grants, scholarships for vocational training and nursing education, dowries for newlywed brides, and payments to minor children of widows, which received the most funding in modern times? We'll begin with Carol Gray. And yes, we do allow screen sharing now.
Oh, well, terrific. So I'm going to just share with you, see if I can gravitate towards it. Okay, to apply, you go to thesmithcharities.org and you go to qualified. And if you want to see the interesting story of this very unusual man and the will that got contested, and how Daniel Webster represented the heirs that, actually, no, he represented Oliver Smith, and the heirs tried to contest the will. You can read that history. But here's how you apply. You go here and you look down, and if you're a tradesperson, you download the application here. A nurse there. Which category got the most hands out the most money? Widows. So for widows, for your first child, you get $300. For each subsequent child under 18, you get $100. And this is every year. This is a category I feel like these people really need the money. And so, I tried reaching out to all the ministers. I tried reaching out to the funeral home. Like, we've got to reach these people because I know they need the money and they just don't know about it. The other thing is mortgages. So I did find out, I asked Smith Charities, do you have any money available for mortgages? And they do right now. So if you need to get a house, you might want to consider applying for a mortgage. I believe they have about $500,000 available for a mortgage now. However, that's tricky because you have to put 30% down, and that's going to eliminate the people who need it the most, which I think is really unfortunate. And I brought that up at the last meeting. Isn't there any way we can be more accessible in terms of mortgages?
Sarah, if you'll go next, please. Thank you.
You said, I don't know what you mean by modern times, and the Form 990s do not give any personal information or a breakdown of the gifts. Okay. And the Smith Charities is a private foundation, and they don't share any data like that on their website. But I have this handy history that they must have themselves written in 1975, and it gives the total amounts paid from 1859 until 1975. So that's certainly not modern times. And I don't know how they adjusted for inflation over all that time, but the largest category at the time was indigent boys and girls together. Mm-hmm. and then widows. So, and we haven't mentioned that the Smith Agriculture and Vocational School is also beneficiary. That has nothing to do with the electors, though. There's a separate fund that just contributes to the school on an annual basis, but that has been a recipient of funds since the beginning.
Thank you. Next question. Why are you running for this position? Sarah Marshall, let's begin with you.
I've filled out far too many bubbles on ballots where there were no choices. There was just one person running. And that's really unfortunate. I think, as I said in one of my statements, democracy requires choices, for your vote to mean something. So I just threw my hat into the ring because as yet there was no challenger. That's all. As I said, I don't have any complaints about Carol's work. I just think that the voters, they need to be asked for their preference, not just please fill in this bubble for this person who's running without challenge. So that's one reason. Plus, I enjoy public service. This is something I'm easily able to do. It sounds like it's not a lot of meetings, which I didn't realize. I mean, I've done lots of board service and volunteer work, and I just be really happy to be able to do this for the town. And it's very non-political, doesn't get into town policies or the town budget or anything. It's just philanthropy. So that's why I'm interested.
Thank you. Carol Gray, if you'll continue.
Thank you very much. I think it's great that there's two of us running, and you know, it is good to have choices, and it sounds like your passion would be welcome on as an elector, Sarah. So why am I personally running? I think the first time, so I'm in my, I think, third term now, and I first ran knowing that it was charity work, and as I said, most of my life I do work that's social justice related. I'm a lawyer. I was a public defender. I have spent a good chunk of my life working to help people who don't have a lot of money, and so I believe in the cause. And after the first year, I started to believe more in we should change some things. And it's wrong that, like, you know, we're not giving away more money, and that people who need it don't know about it. And, you know, even just within these meetings, it's a lovely building. It's an old building in Northampton, one of the oldest, and it's really was in decay. And I was saying we really should get Community Preservation Act funding, and they did actually file a Community Preservation Act grant. Again, the trustees did it, but that's underway. So I feel like once you've been in it a few years, you actually have the ability to do a little more. And if I'm able to be a trustee, which I think would happen the next term, I could do, I think, significantly more.
Thank you. How will you educate and alert Amherst residents about the benefits available under the Oliver Smith will? Carol Gray, let's begin with you.
Okay. The best way to educate is to tell you now. So if you are a bride and you're born in Amherst and it's your first time getting married, you can get $100, but you have to apply within 90 days of your wedding. And you can apply by bringing it or mailing it to Smith Charities, or by bringing it to the town clerk here in Amherst. If you are a widow, again, with children under 18, you should be applying. You could get this money every year. And for example, we have 2 widows receiving benefits now. They each get $350 each year. That's good money. We have a nurse who's an applicant. The nurses get $600. Let's see if I can share screen again and show you a flyer. Oh, here's a flyer for tradespeople. If you know of any place where I can post these, here's they just created this, and I'm glad, because we're investing a little more in getting the word out. I'm going to print these out and poster them around town. When you complete a 2-year apprenticeship, you qualify for a $600 gift when you turn 22. Here's the nurse's flyer. Again, $600 gift upon college graduation. So these flyers explain it all, and I would be happy to email you any of this information. You can email me at carolgray_2000@yahoo.com, or call me, and we really need help to get the word out. So please apply. Tell your friends.
Thank you. Sarah Marshall, if you'll continue.
Well, everything Carol's doing is, of course, necessary and needs to be done constantly, because people forget or people come and go. One thing that I have not heard mentioned yet or exists, as far as I know, is making this information available in other languages, because Amherst has many, many people who do not speak English as their first language. And I think that's just an untapped avenue for communication. So I would think it'd be easy to get these flyers or the forms, even the website, because there's so little on it, you know, have it available in different languages, and make sure that, you know, through the avenues of communication, make sure it goes out in multiple languages. I think that in itself could help quite a lot.
Thank you.
I would suggest a Facebook page, but I gather no one under 20 uses Facebook. So maybe we need to do TikTok or something, you know, to get the young folks.
Thank you. Are disbursements proportional to the town's populations, or are recipients chosen and amounts awarded without regard to town of residence? Sarah, may we begin with you?
I don't believe the grants are the same throughout the communities participating, as long as you meet the requirements for residency, which aren't completely clear. That's one of the problems, but in any case, it doesn't seem to vary by town. They differ by the program, which is, anyway, they differ by the program. So the apprentice gets one thing and the widow gets another, and et cetera. What was I going to say? Oh, there also doesn't seem to be any real means testing. That is, Oliver Smith, his intent was to offer this financial support to indigent people. And we don't really use that word anymore. And there are some questions on the form that basically ask, do you consider yourself to be a person of moderate financial means? You know, and it's fine if there's no means testing. On the other hand, if you're not clear about who qualifies, people may not even apply, because then they may not think they would be eligible. But so the answer to the question is no. It's the same across all the towns, but dependent on the category of grant.
Thank you. Carol Gray, would you continue, please?
Sure. Could you repeat the question again before you
Yes.
start the clock?
We have to restart the clock.
Thank you.
Are disbursements proportional
Oh, yes,
to the
thank you.
town's population, or are recipients chosen and amounts awarded without regard to the town of residence?
So it's a very simple answer. The stipends are the same no matter where you are and no matter what your income is. Yeah, there's no means test. The main thing is all the towns should be having many more people apply. And as I said, I've never heard of there not being enough funds. So I think that we should just publicize that more. By the way, I think that idea of putting it in different languages is a great idea. And if you don't mind, I'm going to email it to them tomorrow and suggest it. It's a great idea. And
well,
also,
come on.
well, I mean,
no, of course.
It should happen. And like, I'm going to create a website for the town, whether I'm elected again or not. Yeah. I'm committed to doing this. And the website's going to include what the elector does, how you apply. And I'd like to have an online form. The one that they have now, you have to print it out and fill it out. And every time you create more steps, it means more people won't apply. It should be able to be filled out online. The mortgage application should be able to be filled out online. You should be able to submit payments online. There's so much that could be done to streamline everything to make it easier for people. Another thing that you may not be aware of, but in the interest of more transparency about this, so you get nothing to be Oliver Smith Elector when you're showing up to the once-a-year meetings, but when you become a trustee, there's a $2,000 stipend. And if you get elected president, there's a $5,000 stipend. So I've never been interested in being president, but I just think people should be aware of this because it's not publicized. It's going to be all on the website that I create. Thank you.
Okay. Now we are ready for the candidates' closing statements. Carol Gray, would you begin, please?
Sure. Well, thank you again for hosting this forum and for helping everyone learn what this interesting and obscure position is. My background, why am I qualified? Well, I'm interested and I care. That's the first things. I'm also an attorney and I'm a former public defender, so I care about benefits that will help people that really need them, especially indigent people. I'm also a teacher. I've taught at GCC for almost a decade, and I'm a grad student right now in political science, and I'm a fellow at the UConn Humanities Institute. I'm also a mom. I've got a 16-year-old learning to drive. Oh my gosh, he plays soccer and theater and many other things. And I've lived in Amherst for about 17 or 18 years. And I was a town meeting member for more than a decade. I was elected to the town meeting coordinating committee several terms. I was a library trustee. I served on the joint capital planning committee for 2 years, founded the green committee of the library, was on the long range planning committee, was on the building committee, drafted a successful Community Preservation Act requests as a library trustee, chaired the budget committee. By the way, I urge everyone to vote, not only because, for all of these offices, but vote also because the library issue is coming up. And for the record, I love the library and want to preserve it, and I'll be voting no on the ballot initiative about the $35 million library renovation project. Again, I think the main thing for this particular grant is that we need to publicize it more, have more people applying, and I'm going to try to do my part to have greater awareness so it's not such a mystery. The webpage, reaching out to the schools to have it go in the school newsletter, that's already happened. I have a newspaper article that already came out once. I'm submitting it again, reaching out to funeral parlors, ministers. I'm doing it as much as I can to publicize it. I hope you'll consider voting for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Sarah Marshall, if you'll give us your closing statement.
Sure. Thank you to the Amherst League of Women Voters and Amherst Media for hosting these forums. I'm glad to have had this opportunity to speak to our voters and to raise the profile of the Smith Charities. If I become Amherst's elector, I will devote my energies to 2, maybe 3 tasks. First, to communicating directly or indirectly the availability of the grants to the various communities that might qualify. And secondly, to bring, if I can, this grant program into the 21st century by altering these forms so that the language is more accessible, to make it available, make them available in Spanish or other languages, that the forms recognize same-sex marriage. Not everybody has, not every widow has lost a husband, and not every apprentice has a mother and a father. Forms, applications that are consistent in their requests for evidence of good character. At the moment, only widows and brides are asked for 3 references as to their good character. So, and also clarify the residency requirements at the outset, both the requirement when one applies and for where one can live if there are limitations during the lifetime of that grant. Also to clarify the citizenship requirements. Some candidates are asked where they were born. One candidate applicant is asked, are they registered to vote? So there are a lot of oddities that need to be cleaned up. And relatedly, as was already mentioned, I would appeal to the probate court, or hope the trustees would, if necessary, to allow changes that increase the amount of money that can be dispersed, maybe by changing the investment plan, not limit it to mortgages, increase the value of the grants, some of which have not changed in 60 years. I'll end there, although I will add, in case this is not deleted, that I hope people will vote in favor of the library. Thank you.
Thank you to all the candidates for participating in this forum, but especially for being willing to represent the citizens of Amherst in our local government. Remember to visit Amherst Media to view the candidates' short presentations there and to look for their statements on the town bulletin board. And to be sure to pick up a copy of the Amherst Bulletin on the Friday before the election day for the League's election guide. Thank you all for being with us. We really appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks so much, Phil.